Hello, welcome to Live Reality Games. My name is Steven Stewart. I'm here to talk about the most recent Survivor BC episode, episode 9. We are at the final 7, and it was fun seeing all the strategy and plotting happening after the fall of the last tribal council. And I'm not alone today to talk to you about Survivor BC. I'm with the most recently limited player, David. David, good to see you. How are you doing?
Hey Steven, I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well. It's heartbreaking once again to watch this go down for you, just because I felt you were at the top of top of that Ululu Alliance, and just for the first time ever, the advantages were not in your tribe's favor.
Yeah, it was a rough round. It was also very quick. It
Mm-hmm.
was from what I recall, like the quickest round. We finished the challenge and then it just went like this, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe 30 minutes.
Well, because it was interesting in the episode, like we see the fallout post tribal council, we get the challenge, then we see some players like Kristen saying, "There's still some players I need to reconnect with that I haven't since the last rounds," and she's working on that kind of the not like apology to her, but kind of a more of an explanation of what went down and her thoughts and feelings before she can get to like, all right, now I need to strategize for this coming vote.
Right. Uh-huh. Yeah, throughout the season, I don't feel like they showed my relationship with Kristen out
Mm-hmm.
there, which was kind of interesting because you see us in this last episode
Mm-hmm.
and it's usually like an emotional conversation, but
Mm-hmm.
I was working pretty closely with Kristen, especially in the early game. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I thought so after merge as well,
Well,
but
I want to say, despite this being your elimination episode, this was kind of Kristen's episode in a lot of way,
yeah.
because we really see this through her lens of her reaction to the vote, her frustration, her kind of like feeling like, what are we doing now? Because I'm worried that we're going to be outplayed because of an advantage, and that it ends up kind of coming true, unfortunately.
Uh, yeah, that's an interesting perspective, but yeah.
That was just the way the episode came together. It was I very
Yeah.
much saw. I feel like we saw a lot more Kristen than we did before, but.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
what I'd like to do is I kind of want to talk to you about your experience leading up to this episode, because I think you had a lot of sway and control in the way this game has shaped and gone to this point. So, from the very start, your background is we're both from Los Angeles. So, you're from Los Angeles. You played Survivor LA, which is a 1 day Survivor game. I think you played the year before you played Survivor BC. Is that correct? Or is it the same
Uh,
year?
yeah, I think it was 2018 or 2019, so it was either like right before or the year
Mm-hmm.
before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a day-long game. And honestly, I didn't know anything about the live game community, even coming into BC.
Mm-hmm.
Like I played that day game and nobody there really like talked about this community. I don't know if many of them even are a part of it,
Mm-hmm.
but I saw a post on our chat on Facebook, and it was like, "Hey, they're casting for BC next season." I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try this, and then
Mm-hmm.
went through the process. But I had no idea about like this community, even
Mm-hmm.
like out there playing BC. I started to hear, Rachel, and so I was like, I don't know anything about this. I don't know what real foot is.
Um, so in your Survivor LA season, it's again a 1 day game, super quick.
hmm
You, if I remember correctly, go out early merge.
Yeah, I'm second boot at merge,
Okay.
double idled out.
So talk to me coming into BC and having had this experience in Survivor LA. Were you changing anything, retooling anything? How were you approaching BC differently than how you walked in Survivor LA?
Yeah, I mean, Survivor, that day game, it was three tribes, and at the merge you only see two people from my original tribe make it to merge. So we're like the Bobby, John, and Stephanie, trying to fight our way. But I got in with a group from the majority, and then yeah, two people from the minority idled, and I got kicked out. So coming into BC, I was like, you know what? Like, even with Lori's vote and like Tony's vote, I think I took those approaches
Mm-hmm.
um, because of my day game, because we had a plan A and a
Mm-hmm.
plan B, but sometimes it's best to go with that plan C. And I think that's kind of what I did a lot in BC.
So it was kind of the cognizance of there are idols. I've even got once. I'm not going. I don't want to be God again like that.
Right, exactly. Uh-huh.
Well, and I guess we'll talk about it later. But overall, that strategy really pays off, right? Because and the swap tribe, you don't know, and I don't know. There is an idol, and Lori has it,
Right.
and she walks home with the idol because
Yes.
she felt comfortable, and so you were very successful in that regard.
Yeah, little did you or I know, but Lori had that idol, and we knocked her out with it.
So let's talk about original Ula Ula before we get to the swap and the merge.
Sure.
Talk to me about your feeling, your thoughts and feelings about this tribe and how you saw everything coming together with the players.
Yeah, I was really excited when we got our tribes. I immediately bonded with Kristen. Like, I want to say within the first few seconds of leaving that mat, we just started talking, and I felt this almost like I don't know if it was like an innocence or what it was, but she just seemed so genuine. And so I hit it off really well with Kristen. And then same with Lexi, same with Aleem, same with Stacy, same with Lindsay. But Lindsay kind of was paired up with Chris, and I wasn't really in that alliance. So yeah. And then Noah was just all over the place.
Well, so in Survivor LA, one of the interesting things about the one-day game is it's also quick and fast and back to back, and it's a one-day game. So what was the experience like having that first like 12 to 18 hours of no vote out? Like you get there, you ride, you can get to know people and talk it out, and versus like Survivor LA, where you just drove straight into things.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, I think it's important to develop a social game of some sort, and I felt like all of us could do that out there. You find your connections, you mesh well with certain people, you don't with others. It's a really important time in building alliances, and you don't want to wait too long, because we see what happens if you don't start talking right away.
Well, in the pre-swap, your tribe was the 2 tribal councils. The Noah tribal council, it's almost like a gift tribal council, just like everyone's just like, yeah, we can rally behind taking Noah out. This dude's a little crazy for us. He's giving his boot order away to your face, and even Aleem's just like, I can't work with him. I'm over it. I'm gonna strike out on my own.
Yeah, Noah was an easy vote, but I also like that paranoia did come in from my Survivor LA experience. Like, what if Noah had an idol? And so Aleem and I decided to make an alliance with Noah just in case, and it kept us out of the fire in case he did pull out an idol.
And even better, like you get Aleem to cast a vote for Stacy. No, yeah. Stacy gets the cast a vote for Aleem. Sorry, that's what happened first.
Right, Stacy cast a vote for Aleem. And I've been reading comments, like some people are saying, oh, you should vote tribe strong first vote. Like that's really important, especially post-merge. But when you're the person that gets voted out because somebody pulls an idol, that's not an ideal situation. So I have mixed feelings about that approach. What about you? Do you think that's the approach you try to go for, or are you more like?
So when you say tribe strong, you mean all your tribe votes for the one person, and you just let that one person cast a vote? It's nice if you know you're not the person getting that extra vote.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and you never know.
And like on a larger tribe, I would like if you had 10 people, I would have no qualms with like casting an extra vote on a player. But like when you start getting those smaller numbers, then it starts getting a little worrisome. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point,
that's what we did.
Yeah. And so I can't fault it. I mean, maybe it wasn't good for your game in the long run because it kind of created that tension between Stacy and Aleem that kind of reared its head at the final 9 and caused Aleem, who was a good ally for you, but not a good ally for some other people to go home. And I think that was possibly a little detrimental to your game at that point.
Right.
I mean, so would you not have a vote cast on Aleem that round? Would you just like still think it's best that that's what the strategy was?
No, I still think that was the best strategy. I don't know what I would do again, like going
cast
back.
it on Chris.
Cast it on Chris, yeah. But I think it was just, you just never know, really.
So after Noah goes home, you get an extra vote, and you choose to share that information with your tribe. Now, granted, you publicly got the advantage.
Mhm.
Was did you ever think about, because you're gonna do this a lot, like telling people in your tribe it was something else, not an extra vote, or what led you to be so forthcoming with that information?
Well, I didn't hear Jaira say, nobody did, I don't think,
No
except
one in your
maybe
tribe.
one person. Yeah, so I was a little bit annoyed, and
Mhm,
I actually just showed them all what I had. Like I showed a piece of paper to all of them. So I think it worked in my favor because it built trust, and it
mhm,
also uh, was like, okay, if we keep David around, he has this extra vote for a swap or for a
mhm,
merge. So I think it was the best thing to do in that situation.
mhm. And we'll see in the like later in the swap. You're the last person chosen from the Ululu tribe because everyone's like, we want David. We're not putting another tribe. We want David in the extra
Yeah,
vote with us.
right, right,
So you make yourself a strategic resource for your tribe, which is great.
right.
So the Chris vote ends up being a mostly down the line vote for your tribe.
Mhm.
But there is a bit of a tension, right? You said Lindsay is really pro Chris, and not all your tribe was maybe as happy with that being the vote out, but that's what the
Yeah.
tribe did. Talk me through that a bit.
Yeah, so you see some of the alliances in
Mm-hmm,
that episode, and I have an alliance with Aleem, Lexi, and Kristen, and then I also have an alliance with Lexi, Lindsay, and Kristen, and then you see like Chris, Lindsay, and Stacy.
mm-hmm,
And then I also had an alliance with Stacy. Like there was a lot of different moving parts, but
mm-hmm,
Chris just didn't fit into my equation at all.
mm-hmm,
Um, and I felt like Alexi and I really felt like if we wanted to pull Lindsay in closer, we had to get rid of Chris.
mm-hmm.
So that's ultimately why we did that.
So what's interesting is that these final six Ulu people all will make it to merge. Now, looking
Mm-hmm.
back, is there a different configuration of six you'd want to be, or five other players you want to be in the merge with you? Like, would Noah or would Chris know? You're just like this was good for your game.
Yeah, I
Okay.
felt close with all five of them in
Mm-hmm.
different ways. Like, yeah, there's none of those five that I was like weary about or wouldn't have done anything to get them further in the
Mm-hmm.
game too. So, no, I felt strong about that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Noah seemed very wishy-washy, as you saw. Like I had no idea what he was doing. He was just so all over the place. He wanted this person out. He gave us his booting list. And then with Chris, I just couldn't trust Chris. Like
Mm-hmm.
he just came off as very aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even though he said he was loyal,
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't getting that gut feeling, and that's a strong feeling in Survivor. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt really good about my connections with the others.
Mm-hmm. Now, at this point, like this is your second game, but you're learning about, oh, there's a lot of these games out there, right? And you're learning
Right.
about players on your tribe who played multiple times, players on the other tribe who played multiple times before, players on both tribes who played with each other. I mean, you see Kevin on the other tribe, but granted, he's gone at this point. What
Yeah.
was going through your head?
I have a lot to say about this. You opened a can of worms. Um, where do I start? Okay. So I wish that there was a way in these games, because like I said, I didn't know
Mm-hmm,
that people knew each other. I didn't
mm-hmm,
know that there were these prior connections that would influence the game in some ways.
mm-hmm,
So I wonder, like, is it better for the host to say, hey, there's people that know each other. If you know each other, just say it now,
mm-hmm,
like at the beginning of the game, so that it's out there. Or is it better to not say anything at all?
mm-hmm.
Because I see it affect you and I in different ways.
Yeah.
Like it really affected your game with us knowing about Rachel, but had you come to me and said, hey, I just want to let you guys know I know Rachel,
Mm-hmm,
like, or it was just expressed at the beginning of the game, I might have reacted a lot differently.
mm-hmm,
And also in my game, I mean, I'm at the final 8. Let's go back to Tony.
mm-hmm,
And Lindsay and I are the only two there with no prior connections. Like
mm-hmm,
we don't know any of these people before. You see somebody there that's super protected. Like Taylor has Kristen, Keegan, and Tony
mm-hmm,
from before the game. And then you see Rachel knows Kristen, and she knew you. And then you see Stacy, who doesn't use these, by the way, connections in her games. Like, she likes to keep it clean. But everybody there knows people, and they actually have like years of friendships. So I could build the strongest alliance with Kristen, but is Kristen going to protect me, or is she going to protect Taylor? So I was a little bit bummed about that, because I felt like it did affect my game. And I wonder, like, moving forward with these games, is it better to address all of these connections when you get there and just throw it all out there, or is it better to not say anything? Because like CBS Survivor, you don't see this because it doesn't happen, but like in these live games, it's a lot of overlap.
Occasionally, like heroes, healers, hustlers, you have it happen. It's kind of Nick's pre-swap, and you're like, okay, whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's, or like obviously Blood vs. Water, or like a returning season, But what do you think? Do you think it's better to get it out right away, or do you think it's better to hide?
Have you seen Survivor New Zealand?
I think I saw an episode and it was too chaotic. Like,
so Survivor New Zealand is notorious that they had high school best friends that were best friends in high school, hadn't really seen each other in the 5 to 6 years since, but they were on opposite tribes, and so when they swapped, they really fought for each other, and like, of course, no one was realizing this is a thing, and what made that season compelling is one of them turns on the other. And all of this gets revealed in the final tribal council, and you're like, oh my gosh. So, I think first best in the Survivor games is there are no prior connections. Like, everyone's coming clean. My first game was Pirate Survival Expedition 2017, and I had no idea that about half my cast, I might be hyperbole. It felt like half the cast had strong connections from playing in Reelfoot. And I had no idea at the time. And it wasn't one of the things I'd learned until later. I'm like, oh, wow, who would have thought? I do agree that these pre-existing relationships or knowledge do influence players' actions. So some examples. This is my third game playing with Rachel. I had actually never spoken to Rachel in a game before. My only time ever talking with Rachel had been in the post-Reelfoot party, because she went out early, pre-merge, and she spent a lot of time with my partner in the game, Katarina. And so that's what I was like, oh man, I've heard so much about Rachel. Wouldn't it be fun to actually play with her for a change, right? And that might have not been the best decision to make, given how things took out. In the most recent Reelfoot season, I can't remember the name. The most recent Reelfoot season, there are a couple of players who had played a Big Brother game, and because of that, they had this surprisingly tight relation with each other, but then that relation got exposed, and there's all this fallout around it, and so those are some examples of when things go south. Now, what games have done to address it? Survivor New York season 4 did a vets versus newbies twist, and what they did is they had all the vets step up at the very front and say, "Hey, everyone, these players have played before," so it was immediately exposed that they all had prior experience. So players knew, and then the tribes are mixed, but everyone knew, okay, half the tribes are vets, half the tribes are newbies. Were things that check out. But what wasn't exposed is still some prior relationships that people knew you played. They didn't know okay, these two players had played with each other potentially. And that ended up still factoring in the season where two players who had played with each other fought for each other and made the end game with each other.
Right.
I'm gonna keep going with. I have 2 more examples, I think. Survivor Pacific Northwest frequently features kind of the similar cast members playing over and over. And so at the start of each season, Jack Wire, the host, BC winner, will kind of walk through each player, where they how they played and what's happened to them. And so players should all kind of know their history. So I think
I like that too.
Just
some knowledge, just
and
so
then
people know.
Survivor BC Tribulation. There was a group of 3 friends who had a major impact in how the season shook out from merge on. And so
was it addressed at the beginning that they knew each other? Okay.
So I think, I don't know. I think you're right that maybe it is best to be upfront saying, hey, this is Steven. He has played in these games. Name the games. Hey, this is Rachel. She has played in these games. And of course, the member's Steven and Rachel played in 2 games with each other before. What is going on?
Right.
And then like then maybe if we air it out or let it out in front, that takes care of it.
Yeah.
I mean, but
I
then like, what if
uh
like two players have played in orgs and so their relationship was secret and they had the secret advantage? I don't know. Um,
I didn't even know what an org was until
oh, same.
BC. So
So like,
it's like,
I think there are different approaches to it. And I think there's pros and cons to both.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
I will say, I don't know if Taylor and Keegan knew each other preseason.
I
That
think
was
they did.
okay. Maybe they do. I just don't know about it.
Yeah. I know
Um,
Tony and Taylor did. I know
yeah.
Kristen and Taylor did.
Hmm.
And then
Well, I think of those relationships. You really see the Chris and Taylor relationship under stress and really
yeah,
evidence, especially in this episode where it's really like Taylor is really hurt that Kristen has been lying to her, and now Kristen feels like I can't lie because like this is actually having ramifications going on, and just kind of like how do you play like that fine line of like, hey, we're friends, but now we're on opposite sides. See, like,
right.
was it heroes versus villains? Amanda and Parvati kind of have that like
Yeah.
where are we going with this? They realize like it's not going to go well.
Yeah, yeah. But it's hard, like, at least with heroes versus villains,
Mhm.
like, people know that
Yeah.
Harvey and Amanda, like, I was so confused why Kristen was being so protective of Taylor.
Hmm.
And yeah, you see them at the swap, but then it just it didn't make sense to me.
Hmm.
Like, and then that's where you see me go to Rachel and like try to come up with another plan because my alliance just it just didn't seem to be making
Hmm.
sense, you know?
Well, getting back to kind of rolling to emerge, so you emerge out of your swap tribe where it's the
Mhm.
three Ula intact, you, Lindsay, and Stacy. And I think I want to kind of talk a little about your relationship with Lindsay, right? Because you came out of this Chris vote, you swapped this tribe. I had no idea that Lindsay never indicated that she might was ever unhappy with how that vote went down. How did your
Mhm.
relationship kind of grow or change with her through the swap experience?
Yeah, I think Lindsay and I were tight, pre-swap, and Lexi took a lot of the blood for
Hmm.
Chris being voted out.
Hmm.
I was kinda, like, behind the scenes,
Hmm.
but that helped my relationship with Lindsay because she didn't really know how much of an actually Stacy and Lindsay. Like, I got swapped with so I was in an alliance with Lexi, Aleem, and Kristen, and
Hmm.
I end up with Lindsay and Stacy, and I just voted out their ally.
Hmm.
And so I had to kind of push the blame a little bit on Lexi, like more like, yeah, I don't know why she was gunning for Chris that hard, but really, yeah, I think we were close before the swap, and then we just got closer,
Hmm.
um, just sticking together.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, Looking back at it now, if you have your choice of Lori, Keegan, or me, which of the three of us do you think would have been best to bring to merge?
Oh, that's hard.
And take knowledge of Lori's out of consideration,
Out
right?
of consideration.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to work with Lori.
Hmm.
Like I've said this before, she was someone I like
Hmm.
really wanted to go far with in the game. So probably Lori. I mean, I was just so weary of you and Rachel together.
Hmm.
And even like that first moment
Hmm.
where you two are running together
Yeah.
and you seem like you're forming this alliance, it was sus. So I was like, I don't know about Steven. And then Keegan, I felt like, yeah, it was definitely Lori of the three
Hmm.
of you. I would have wanted to go far with.
Because I remember just being because I really thought it was Keegan and I going home that vote, and when Lil goes out, I was like, well, props to them for playing me, but I was like, wow, I'm so confused because I saw like Lori and Stacey were just hitting it off so
Yeah,
well. And I was
they
just like, well,
were.
maybe like Lindsay and David want to say no, no, none of that. I
Right,
thought
right.
maybe it was like being protective of your relationship with Stacey was why Lori was being targeted. But I mean, maybe the best case should have been like you put the target on me and Lori, and that way you can take out Keegan that first vote.
If Lori doesn't have an idol.
Well, I mean, like yeah, I mean, what's the worst that happens, right? You say like you go to Lori and say, hey, we're voting Steven. You go to me and say, hey, we're voting Lori. We talk, we think we're being targeted. Lori plays her idol, right? And
Right.
it's three votes Keegan or 4 votes Keegan, right?
Yeah. I mean, the problem is we didn't know Lori had an idol, so we couldn't even
Of
like
course.
play with that. So yeah, otherwise that would have changed things a lot. I don't know what would have happened with my extra vote and knowing that Lori had an idol. That would have been chaos. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, but again, your desire to not be hit by an idol, it plays out really well here because you blindside Keegan and me, you take out Lori. She has an idol, you use an extra vote perfectly. I mean, everything's going right for you at this point.
Yeah, no, it was a good position there.
Yeah. So I go home and then you reach merge, and the merge it's 6 original Ula Ulas. So it's you, it's Lindsay, it's Stacy, and then it's Lexi, Aleem, and Kristen. And then you have 3 Bato members you've never met. You have Rachel, you have Tony, and you have Taylor joining with Keegan.
Right. Yeah.
So walking to this merge, what did you want to see happen?
You know, I felt like I was in a really good position with my Ula Ula people. And when something's going really well, why change it? Like, I just felt like I was kind of in the middle of all of them. And I thought, you know, what's the point in even trying to keep Rachel around or Taylor or even Tony's a little different. No, Tony and I actually had this like working relationship that I'll talk about, but Taylor and Rachel, you know, like I didn't swap with them. I didn't start with them. So Rachel was this huge physical threat. I saw her like as a challenge beast. And so it just made sense to go after her right away. And yeah, I saw like the Ula Ula people as my people. And I think it's like my downfall in life kind of translates to Survivor BC because I'm a really loyal person. Like if I'm with you, I am with you. Like I will do anything for you. I will just keep going, keep pushing. And I wouldn't even turn on them at the final 7, which
you didn't even turn on Rachel at the final 7.
No, I don't even turn on Rachel because I made a deal with her. So being loyal can come back to hurt you, but that's just how I am. I don't know. I was loyal to a fault.
So I have a question. We see this scene right around merge, and it's you dash into the woods, and Keegan's like, "What's he doing?" And Keegan dashes after you, and Keegan's like, "What did you find?" You're like, "I don't know." And then Keegan goes over and says, "David has an idol." Like, what was going on with that?
Yeah, I was playing with him. I was just like lots of mind games, wanted him to think I had everything. I mean, I had like 3 extra votes. I still have one here if you want me to pull it out. I have idols. I just kept making things up just to kind of scare Keegan and that alliance.
Well, talk to me about your Tony Valacha's bag of tricks approach, right? Because at the merge, you and Rachel in the challenge, you win immunity, right?
Yeah.
And then while you and Rachel are grabbing the jelly beans, which will be your dinner that night, you kind of have this like, hey, do you still have that advantage? What is it? And she's like, I don't know. Do you still have your advantage? Like you're like, well, I think do you say maybe or yes, but you kind of indicate you do have this advantage.
Yeah. So when we did that challenge, it was pre-swap, like right there, the questions challenge. I forget the name of it, but I got like a lot of answers, and I was like, yeah, like all of these answers, and I was like, I need to come up with some game plan that is going to keep me around because I feel like I'm too big of a threat right now, and I didn't even realize it. So my thoughts just were like, what can I do? And I was like, I can come up with advantages that I don't have. And so that's what I did all the way to me being booted out. So I felt like that challenge really gave me some perspective. Yeah.
So did your connection with Tony was that really formed this first night, or was that kind of formed over the next day? Like when did that happen?
You mean at merge?
Yeah.
Tony and I started talking at the merge, and I just got like really good vibes from Tony. He seemed like a loyal guy as well. And so Tony and I would talk to each other one-on-one before the votes and just kind of keep each other in the loop. And I felt like Lindsay and Stacy were really tight with Keegan, and I saw Kristen with Taylor,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I need somebody too. So Tony was kind of my person from
Mm-hmm.
the other tribe that I thought I could get close with.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought by the Tony vote, like this is on top of everything else that happened. I thought by the Tony vote, like me showing that I'm getting rid of Tony, if they thought we were close,
Mm-hmm.
that it would be like, hey guys, I'm gonna let go of one. Can you do the same thing? You know?
Gotcha. So that's interesting. Like each person in Uluru kind of had like their side alliance, right? And Tony was your side alliance.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it an alliance. Like we never
Sure.
made like a pact, but I just felt like I could trust Tony and
Mm-hmm.
I could run things by him, and
Mm-hmm.
he seemed super loyal. So just being a loyal person myself, I just felt like, okay, this could work, you know?
Mm-hmm. So that very first day, you only have a couple hours where you go your first tribal council, and
Mm-hmm.
so talk me through the strategy when things went down, because eventually Rachel ends up being the target.
Yeah.
She plays an idol, which is the last thing you want to see, but Lexi takes the bullet.
Yeah. That tribal council, like the final seven, I was hardcore trying to get Keegan
Mm-hmm.
like to come up. But once again, Lindsay and Stacy kept protecting Keegan.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like this ongoing thing through our season. And so they were like not okay with that. And they were like, we're doing Lexi no matter what, especially Stacy. She's like, Lexi, Lexi, Lexi.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, all right, like I guess we're just gonna have to do Rachel. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I did present Rachel, but I wasn't crazy about
Mm-hmm.
it. And just in the chance that Rachel didn't play her idol or advantage or whatever, you know, to keep Lexi in the game, I did that, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Because I kind of felt like Lexi was acceptable collateral damage for that from
Yeah.
that tribal.
Yeah. Not for me though.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I think
know.
Lexi going home is bad for your game. And I mean, from talking to Lexi, it sounds like you convinced her to take you to the very end with her. Might have been a challenge, but she was definitely looking to keep you around to the final four, final five.
Yeah. I don't know if Lexi and I had each other in our end games,
Mm-hmm.
especially after swap, but I definitely wanted her around for like until final 5 or 6.
What did you hear about the Ula Ula 2.0 tribe? What did you hear about how that swap went down?
I heard that Aleem and Lexi kind of went off on their own, and Kristen felt isolated from them. And so, you know, she got closer with Taylor and Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, I don't know how much of that is because of their prior relationship or if that actually was the feeling. I think it was a combination of the two.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard that, and that was good work on, you know, on their part, getting her to kind of move in the middle a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. So you knew going into the merge, Rachel had an advantage. Rachel plays the idol. Do you, at that point, did you think, well, that maybe was advantage? Maybe she got a clue to the advantage or clue to the idol?
I'm trying to remember if we thought that she had more. I feel like we did, because I think her alliance leaked it, right? Like I think
so at the final 8, Keegan's just like, she has something else. She's like, going to the bus, Rachel, going to the bus.
Right. Uh-huh.
So Lexi goes home. The next challenge, I believe Rachel wins, is the water war. So if Rachel had not won the next challenge, would you have just kept targeting her?
If Rachel didn't win that challenge, I don't know. I'm not sure like what we would have done, because once again, like my Ula Ula people really wanted Aleem out. So I'm not sure. I mean, I would have pushed for Rachel or Keegan, but you know, one vote isn't going to do much. So,
because what's interesting is like you have this core alliance of Ula Ula people, Stacy, Lindsay, and Kristen, and they're dragging you to make these votes that you really don't want.
Yeah, and I'm not making them either. Yeah. Like I didn't vote for Aleem, I didn't vote for Rachel. Like, you know, I kind of do my own thing. Like I'm not doing this. So, and I tried at tribal council with Aleem to like cause some chaos and just get the vote off of Aleem or scare them enough to vote for one of them, but that didn't work either. So,
well, at what point in the scrambling did you come realize like Aleem is in trouble and I need to do whatever I can to help them.
Yeah, it was like towards the end,
Mm-hmm.
like maybe like even walking
Mm-hmm.
over to tribal, I kept checking in with Lindsay, with Kristen, with Stacy, and I was getting all these wishy-washy answers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was like, oh man, Aleem is in trouble. Let me try to do something at tribal. So yeah.
Because I think, looking back, I'm just like, man, ooh, could have picked off Keegan
Thank
or
you.
Keegan or Taylor or Tony, and then it's a 5-3, and then if you want to flip an Aleem, we're like, well, at least you're going into 7 with a 4-3 split,
Right.
so you have a little
Thank you,
bit.
Steven.
It's like because I'm thinking you're playing the Tony Blatchers game. You're like, you're okay losing alliance members. But you always want to lose them while you're ahead.
Right. Yes, exactly. So I was like, what are we doing? Like, you know,
So you cause a live travel. What was that like?
it was fun. It was chaotic, fun, uh, lots of nerves and excitement, and I don't know. I enjoyed it.
But Aleem goes home. But what's interesting after this Aleem vote, finally, the 4 of you are coming together on something.
Yeah, I feel like maybe those three, like Stacy, Lindsay, Kristen, didn't trust Aleem and Lexi that much, and the 4 of us trusted each other a lot more,
Mm-hmm.
or there was more trust with me from them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we were finally able to come together,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a fun vote too.
Because what's fascinating about the final 8, there's so many parallels to our final 14 vote, I guess. The swap when we have 3 Ula, 3 Batuan. Here we have 4 Ula, 4 Batuan. And while
Mm-hmm.
Lori, Keegan, and I are just like, yeah, we'll go to the rocks, these 4 are not going to the rocks with each other. It
No.
becomes very clear. Was that something? How did you pick up that Keegan and Taylor and Rachel had no desire to go to the rocks to each other?
No, I guess I don't know if I picked up on it, but I saw Keegan definitely pitch Rachel a ton. And so I wasn't sure if he was lying or if that was actually what he wanted, which is why we ultimately went with Tony, because it was like,
Yeah.
who's telling us the truth here?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't sure if they would go to rocks or not.
It was something like when Rachel says, "I'll vote Keegan," and Keegan says, "I'll vote Rachel," and Taylor's like, "I'll vote Rachel." So you're just like, "Is this too good to be true?" Is that what
Exactly.
went through your head right then?
Yeah, I mean, they've lied to me before. Why wouldn't they lie again? So yeah, I was like, let's do Tony.
And so I guess we were just like it was a little too unbelievable that they were folding like that so quickly.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I guess Taylor was not an option because Kristen and some of your alliance members were not willing to write down Taylor's name at that point.
Yeah, that was part of it. And then to be like completely blunt, I didn't see Taylor as a threat. Like I kind of saw her as very just go with whatever they wanted. Like I saw the major threats were Rachel and Keegan. And so Taylor was just kind of along for the ride in my eyes. So why get rid of her, you know?
Well, I'm just thinking because like when you're looking at that Ula Ula 4, are you seeing them in pairs? Are you seeing a Keegan Taylor versus and then a Rachel and Tony pair?
With the Batahan 4?
Yeah.
Not
there's a lot.
necessarily. I saw Tony and Rachel really close, but then I also saw Tony and Taylor really close, and then I saw Keegan and Taylor really close, and then I saw, yeah, it was kind of all over the place. I didn't really pair them up like that.
Because there's a lot of chatter, at least after the final 9 mini challenge, when Tony is helping Rachel win the challenge. Like, oh no, Tony and Rachel, there must be a duo.
Yeah, I wasn't as concerned with the Tony Rachel duo as I was about getting Keegan and Rachel out. Yeah, just because I also had like this working relationship with Tony. So Tony didn't scare me like, you know, the other two.
So who put forward Tony's name? How did Tony end up being the plan that vote?
Yeah, so we all chatted, and like I said, it was it seemed too good to be true that like Rachel was going to vote for Keegan, Keegan was going to vote for Rachel, and Taylor was going to vote for Rachel, and Tony was going to vote for Stacy. It was like, this just seems like a mess and like something I would create, but am I buying it? No. So I think my conversation started with Stacy where we were like, let's do Tony. Like, I think production will be able to tell you more. I wish it was more in the edit more, but
I have that mystery, right?
yeah, I'm pretty sure like we pitched Tony and Tony ended up going. But we also had that extra vote. Which looking back, I'm like, I wish we saved that extra vote for Final 7 because then we could have used it like one on Keegan, you know?
Well, because that extra vote was not subject to limitations, right?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. A couple of things. I guess, first of all, at this point in the episode, we get a lot of, like, I think you're promising you're going to play your idol at Tribal Council, and there's a lot of discussion of extra vote. Keegan is swearing you have an idol. I mean, I was wondering, like, the more you did it, like, did you feel like there was diminishing returns on, like, threatening to use these advantages, but the more you didn't play them, the more people were just like, does he actually have them?
No, because I felt like they kept believing it, so I was like, I'm just going to keep going with it. Yeah, and I knew the horn was, like, nothing, but it was like a, what's his name, Adam Klein?
Yeah.
It's like...
It's your fleur-de-lis.
Yeah, it's like if there's something and you're not sure about it, play it. So
at what point did Stacy give you the horn?
Oh gosh, the horn was... What episode did we see the horn?
So she took it like, gosh, pre-merge, I want to say. Pre-swap, like second vote outs or something like that. Pretty early.
And then at the Final 7, she was like, here, just play this, like, see what happens.
Because I was like, I've never seen this in my life.
Yeah, I kept saying to the three of them, I was like, I know I'm getting the votes. Like, the interesting thing about the Final 7 is that everybody tells each other exactly what's happening. So, like, there was no surprises on my end except Rachel. Like, I didn't know Kristen's name was coming up, but everything else was like, Taylor and Keegan told me they're voting for me. You knew, I knew the 3 girls were voting for Rachel. I knew who I was voting for. So Rachel was the only person I didn't know, but you don't really see that too often, though, like where you kind of know where everybody's vote's going.
Well, you know? it had some great reactions, that traveler. I was just like, Kristen, what? And then it's like one David, one Kristen, one Keegan, and I was just like, oh.
Right.
Before we get to that, I want to go more on this final 8 Tribal Council. Watching the episode, right, now that you know that, like, truly the Bats 1-4 were not willing to go to the rocks to each other, and I still to this day don't know how Tony gets left out of the loop completely, as is, that, like, Rachel doesn't tell him, like Tony's belief is that we're all together, and like the other 3 are like, no, we're not, and no one informs them. Knowing what you know now, that Rachel and Keegan and Taylor are willing to cannibalize each other. Where would you have voted? Like, if you could say, guys, there's gonna be no idol play, they're sincerely going after each other, who would you have chosen?
I mean, I think that move was amazing. Like, I love that vote out because I felt like it was, I'll answer your question in a second, but I thought it was perfect. It was like so perfect for my Ula Ula 4 because it turned them against each other. Like, what's going on? Like, nobody knew what was going on. And it also took out a really strong ally that probably all 3 of them thought about taking to Final 2.
Yeah.
So it was like they all had to adjust their games. And so I thought it was the perfect vote.
I mean, it's the move of the season.
Yeah, I thought it was
like
great.
We have I know, like, I'll be nice to the viewers. Up to this point, it's the move of the season. We don't know what happens later, but it's beautiful, right? Because you have them turn on each other. You get your way, and everyone's just left like, what just happened, right? And you're just like, man, and you gotta be thinking like, this has got to shatter those relationships, having that happen like that.
Right. And also, I will say, taking Rachel out of the game would have been possibly bad for my game just because we were both big threats. And so I thought about that a lot. And that's also like part of that conversation that I had with her was, we're both big threats. Like, if I go, you're probably next. So we'll see what happens with that. But I I didn't think that was the best move for my game. And then yeah, Keegan was like super protected, as you know. And I didn't see Taylor as a threat. So it was just like Tony felt like the right vote.
Well, because I remember when I watched it go down at the time, I was just like, what is happening? Like in my mind, I was like, wow, did like Rachel go for Keegan and Keegan like go for Rachel and they're going at each other? But what was fascinating about watching this episode, now we're kind of catching up the present, is they never told each other they were talking to each other. They're just like, yeah, it's okay, it's natural. Like we were both in the block, we both did it. And it was just kind of like there's like no animosity in between each other when they just kind of looked at each other. It's like, yeah, that just happened, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to pick up. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what brings them together for the next vote.
Mm-hmm.
It's like had our plan worked 100%, they
Mm-hmm.
would have turned on each other again and
Yeah.
again. So we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's the one thing that goes wrong. Because I think we hear in the episode, you're just like, oh man, this has gotta have broken them apart, and like we just get to pick up the pieces. But so they're just like, huh, yeah, we got played. No, we don't really like
Right.
this. Yeah, let's we're gonna bring it back together now.
Right. Right. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It was interesting.
and so even with the knowledge you have now, you still think Tony was the right way to go.
100%.
Is there ever a world where you vote out Rachel or you vote out Keegan and you get the goodwill of the other to continue on? Because let's say you vote with Rachel, you take out
Yeah.
Keegan, she catches a vote from Taylor. Now she's like, oh, Taylor voted for me. She's against me. Like maybe
Yeah.
she's more willing to vote out Taylor. I don't know.
Um, yeah, I guess like I my loyalty once again was to those three girls,
Yeah.
like Kristen, Lindsay, and Stacy. So I really didn't care. Like, if I'm with you, I'm with you 1,000,000%. And
Yeah.
if I'm not, I'm not. So I felt really good about the three of them.
All the
And
bats are going to go home eventually.
yeah, I was like, they're all going to
Yeah.
go. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's just because like, we hear from Kristen a lot this episode, just the concern of like, we should have chosen a side. Right. Versus like there was like two paths. There's the vote Rachel, vote Keegan, and y'all just like, nope, we took a third path and it was brilliantly executed. But now
Yeah.
now there's the repercussions of that where now you have two sub alliances, you're like, huh, we're not happy instead of one sub alliance, I suppose.
Right. And for me, it was like, okay, now we gain the majority again.
Mm-hmm.
The four of us just can make
Right.
it to the final four and do it. Yeah.
So now we're in the present. We start on this episode. Thank you everyone for waiting 45 minutes to talk about episode 9.
Yeah. No problem.
We get to see a lot of follow. I just love to like we open the episode. Well, first there's Kristen who is just inaudible for portions of it, which I felt bad about. I'm just like I'm cranking the volume, but I just can't understand what she's saying.
Yeah.
But Kristen, you see very fast that like she's very upset with how this went. And did you how quickly did you realize like that Kristen was unhappy with how all this went down?
Like right after the vote, the editor was really nice because he didn't show this, but there was a lot of like scream crying. Like it was like Taylor scream crying, Kristen scream crying, and you see them on like opposite sides, just like, how could you do this? And I didn't mean to do this. And so it was pretty like evident right after the vote that Kristen was not thrilled.
I have this little side question. Not this week's Survivor episode. The previous week's episode was called "The Vibe of the Tribe." What is the vibe of this merged tribe?
The vibe of this merge tribe.
What's the ethos of the tribe? Like, how can you describe it to me at all?
So it's like with like the people that got voted out already.
Sure, like however you want, from the final 8, final 9, final 10, final 7.
Yeah, it was a lot of emotions. I will say that, and that was tough for me. I tried my best to, be there and I guess relate to the emotions, but it was hard. Like a lot of crying, a lot of anger, a lot of Yeah, like I don't know. I was shocked by how emotional a lot of the people got,
Mm-hmm.
and I tried to be like very. Um, I tried to be there for them, but I also was like, we're playing Survivor, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to pick a word to describe
Mm-hmm.
the merge, it would be emotional,
Yeah.
minus
Well,
me. No, I'm just kidding.
well, we see the three Battleline players come together, and like I just love the look on Rachel's face as Keegan approaches. She's just this very she's over it, disgruntled, and then Keegan's like, "Yeah, I voted for you," and then
Yeah,
Rachel's this kind of dry humor. She's like, "Well, I voted for Tony," and they're like, "Really?" She's like, "No."
right, right. Uh-huh. Well, that was great.
Um, we get a confessional from you who, and at this point, I think you're elated, right? Because you just made this great move. You're like, man, there's a lot of chaos, but like kind of follows everyone's crying. You're kind of finding it kind of humorous, just like how volatile things are in the post game. You're really hoping that like the original Baton are all going to be upset with each other now.
Yeah, it was perfect. I mean, they turned on each other. We got somebody out. We gained the majority. What could go wrong?
Mm-hmm. And now, in this, before we get the challenge, we see you talking to Kristen, right? And Kristen is here
Hmm.
as the one saying, like, I think this was a bad move. I
Hmm.
really don't like what just happened.
Yeah.
Um,
And
t-
I was like, I hear you.
mhm,
I understand, but
mhm,
once again, I felt like a lot of that was like her friendship with Taylor. Like she was lying and hurting Taylor, so
mhm,
it became like personal, you know.
mhm,
And you see Taylor get really angry. Like she actually is like, they're horrible people, and
mhm,
that's like an ongoing thing. And we're playing Survivor, we're trying to
mhm,
get to the end, and she's lying too. She lied to
mhm,
Rachel about that vote. So I think Kristen's feeling all of that, like her friendship with Taylor and
mhm.
just being a good person.
Following this tribal council, who are you talking to? Now, we saw you talk to Kristen, but do you remember any other the important conversations or moments?
Um, I mean, I talked to Stacy, I talked to Lindsay.
Hmm.
They're also hearing it from Keegan. So like Taylor's in Kristen's ear, Keegan's in their ear. Um, and so there's a lot of emotion, Stephen. It
Hmm.
was a lot. Like I remember very clearly having a conversation. You don't really see the four of us, but
Hmm.
we had a lot of conversations, like Stacy, Lindsay, Kristen, and I
Hmm.
that round. And Stacy and Kristen were crying a lot, and Lindsay was. I don't think she was crying, but she was pretty emotional too. And I'm like, guys, we have to vote out Keegan or Taylor. Like, and I kept pitching Keegan. Like, that was my big pitch. Like, hey, if we don't get Keegan out, I'm going home. Like,
Hmm.
it's very clear. Rachel's telling me she has an advantage. Why don't
Hmm.
we believe that? Why don't we trust that?
Hmm.
And so, I kept on like, we got to do this. We got to do this. You don't see it in the episode, but I'm just telling you what happened. And they were very resistant to it. And that's when I go over to Rachel. And then I even go over to Rachel, Taylor, and Keegan, which you
Hmm.
don't see in the episode either. But I have a full on conversation with the three of them. And I'm like, am I flipping here? Like, it crossed my mind for a second. Like, am I
You
flipping
flirted
them?
with it.
I did. And then they were like, tell us who. Like, the three of them were like, just tell us, Kristen or Stacy, which one?
Hmm.
And I couldn't do it.
Hmm.
Like I said, I'm just too loyal. So I was like, I'm not gonna
Hmm.
flip on them. And I saw the three of them, like Lindsay, Kristen, and Stacy, watching my conversation with them,
Hmm.
and like, low key freaking out because they're like, is David gonna flip? But yeah, I really thought like maybe Rachel was being true and loyal to her, like with her word.
Hmm.
But yeah, um, it was my only real chance unless I were to flip. But the thing is, Steven, like if I flipped, I don't know if they were telling me the truth. They
Yeah.
could have blindsided me. So do you trust, the enemy?
Hmm.
Or these people, like, do you hope that something comes out? I don't know. I was like it was a hard place because I was like, they might be telling me that they're flipping with me, but then they vote me out. So
I mean, imagine the world where you do vote for Kristen.
Yeah.
right? And so like it ends up being 2 votes David, 2 votes Kristen, right?
Hmm.
And there's a tie.
Yeah.
I
Right. I
mean,
think I go home there. Like if I were to do the math, I think Lindsay and Stacy vote Kristen out, but I think the other three vote me out. I think.
do you think Rachel still votes you out?
I think so because she probably sees me as the bigger threat. I don't know for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Like I can't say for sure, but I do think if it tied, like if Rachel did vote Keegan,
Mm-hmm.
I think Keegan goes home there
Mm-hmm.
because I've talked to the Ula Ula people and they said they would have voted for Keegan.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think if like it's me and Kristen with 2 votes each. I don't know for sure, but I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that Kristen goes.
So so after kind of the initial like fallout from the previous tribal council, we get to
Hmm.
a very entertaining immunity challenge.
Yeah,
Why were your mouth duct taped exactly again? I don't
yeah,
recall the reason for it. It just felt like cruel and unusual punishment watching back the episode. Everyone's like gasping for breath as they're sprinting back and forth to look for
right, right.
items in the grass.
I think it was just so that we couldn't help each other.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. Did you pick up on what I did that episode, that challenge?
It looked like your tape was coming off, or you kind of had it half off.
No. I could not remember anything, Steven. Like, I don't know if it was from lack of food or like I was just exhausted, but my memory was done. Like, I could not remember one of those. Not one that Gyro listed off did I remember. So you see me following people to see what they pick up,
Yeah,
and
because
that's why
okay,
like I'm
when it was
following
you and
Lindsay.
Lindsay, I see you following Lindsay. I'm like, well, maybe this is a strategy. He wants to swoop in and grab her right before she does.
No, I did do that a couple of times, like prior rounds to people, but that round I was like, I mean, all of them, I just had no idea what it was. So I was like, if I can follow her, get it, and then find it quick, I can race her back. You know.
I want to talk about the elements of the game real fast, right?
Uh huh.
I seem to recall you had a really terrible sleeping bag.
I did. Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Like, you brought like a sleeping bag. I think you couldn't fit inside, or you just had to use the blanket, and so I don't think you slept great out there.
Yeah, I didn't sleep great. I'm not a camper. It was tough, Steven.
Because I remember when we were swap tribe, I had like a 30-degree like camping sleeping bag, and like I see David was like, wow, and you're just like, yeah, this isn't great. I'm like, no, I agree, it's not.
Oh yeah, that's right. We slept next to each other
Mhm.
at the swap too. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I did not have a good sleeping bag. I also like realized through this whole season that the elements like were pretty rough because I'm doing this a lot. Like
Chapstick.
yeah, I rely on chapstick so much that my lips were so dry out there. Um, and I actually lost 8 pounds when I played
You mean you
Survivor
weren't? You
BC.
mean subsisting on jelly beans and biltong didn't heal you? What?
Exactly. I lost 8 pounds. I did not get that merge feast
Mhm.
because I won that challenge. Rachel and I starved a bit. Yeah, the egg didn't do it.
So you almost pull out this immunity challenge, right? But Lindsay is able to edge you out at the very end, in which like
Hmm.
imagine what would have gone down had you won this challenge. Like maybe Lindsay's the one who goes home instead. Maybe she gets idled out. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think that if I won that challenge, I would have done everything in my power to protect Lindsay, Stacy, and Kristen.
Mhm.
And I would have, I think Lindsay would have been scared at that point because she probably would have known it's her. And so she would have done anything to stay in the game. And I
Mhm.
think she would have voted with me for, you know,
Mhm.
any of them.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, yeah, I think that's the difference.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So do you think that would have caused you all to be able to put the 4 votes total on Keegan, or there have been actually? Would you have like seen a majority vote split go down?
I think, yeah, I think we would have put the 4 votes on either Taylor or Keegan if Rachel. Oh no, Rachel had, yeah, she had an advantage. Um, but like if they were going to be that stubborn again, I would have had immunity.
Mhm.
So I would have tried my hardest to make sure
Mhm.
that Lindsay didn't go,
Mhm.
and I would have voted for whoever they wanted to just to keep her in.
Mhm. So you mentioned this was a short round. Talk me through kind of the evolution of the strategy through the scramble, because we kind of see like I think we first see you talking to Rachel, and you're saying it's Keegan, and then we see you immediately go to David and Lindsay and kind of like say like we need to go for Rachel instead. Or there's a lot of like Rachel versus Keegan. I think the last thing we hear of you, it's going to be Rachel, but then you vote for Keegan. Walk me through the evolution of how things work for you.
Yeah, the edit didn't show, like I said, a lot of the scramble. The only reason that I was saying that to Kristen in the episode about Rachel is because, like I said, the four of us had chatted so much and they were so set on Rachel. So I just was agreeing at that point, like, it's Rachel, it's Rachel. But yeah, I couldn't get them to budge. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I tried everything. I was like, I'm going home if you don't vote for Keegan or Taylor, and they wouldn't budge. So me saying Rachel to Kristen was really just like, I have to agree because
Yeah, this is where you all are going, so I'm kind of resigned.
Yeah, and then that's where I go to Rachel and I'm like, I'm voting for Keegan. I'm telling you, like, let's do this. And so that's what happened.
So you mentioned that actually a couple of things. So one of the enjoyments I had this episode was, what advantages does David have? Right? We've seen this time and time again, and like we see the real payoff here where you maybe have an idea that Rachel has an extra vote. I don't think you know for sure what she has, or she does or does not, but Rachel has an extra vote. And she doesn't play it because she's like, this is useless this is useless.
Right.
Because first of all, like, what if the tie on me?
Right.
And I can't use the revote. Second, it's going to be a 4 or 5 vote anyways. David's going to use his extra vote.
Right.
And so, yeah. I mean, when we talk about the value of extra votes, you use it best in your swap tribe. This is probably the next best time of the season to use an extra vote.
Oh yeah. I wish we would have had that extra vote, like I said, from the round before. But we didn't.
Because had Rachel used it and they would put 4 votes on you or 4 votes on someone else, like they would have tied it. And given that you put your vote on Keegan, it would have been enough.
Right. It's true. Yeah.
So
yeah, they could have done other things too, but
you were successful in the fact that didn't do anything with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one takeaway.
The next thing is, you mentioned like going this tribal council more than any other tribal council. You knew where all the votes were going outside of Rachel's, right?
Yeah.
Was that the same for everyone else? Did everyone else kind of have an idea at that point of where votes were going?
I don't know. I'd love to hear though.
Because I'm curious. Like, Keegan gives the idol to Rachel, and so Rachel plays the idol. So
yeah, I still am very unclear about that. Even like I didn't see it in the episode. Like, what happened with the idol? Who had it? Like
when the pass off occurred.
Yeah. Did you get that?
No, I don't think we see a formal moment, but that's what I assume that's the only idol that we've seen that's active. So at some point he's handed off the idea that Rachel will play it, Rachel will get the glory, and that will be a good shield for Keegan because that way people don't come after him for like finding an idol and playing it successfully.
Yeah, which was very risky because one more vote and Keegan could have gone. So
yeah, so like that's what I was wondering, like how much information bled to the point where like Keegan felt comfortable, like, hey, they're going after Rachel here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll see it in the next episode, but it sounds like Kristen and Taylor, like that friendship that they had, like it was so like Kristen won't lie to me again. So I think that's why they felt so secure about it. That's my take from it. But Lindsay and Stacy, from what I know, didn't think that I was in trouble. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah.
So you know that your alliance is voting for Rachel, so it's 3 votes there. You know that Taylor and Keegan are voting for you, and Taylor also reiterates that tribal council, I'm writing your name down. You're like, okay, great.
Right.
You know you're voting for Keegan, so you know it's looking like a 3-2-1. It's just a question of where is Rachel going?
Yeah.
And I guess you're like, worst was the worst. It's a 3-3-1, and there's a revote in my favor.
Right. I mean, yeah, I knew Rachel had something, and I knew she was going to play it, and I thought it was an idol. And, I think she even told me, I can't remember now, but yeah, I really was relying on Rachel to stick with me there. And then I think like the game changes too. I think like had Rachel been loyal to me that round, I think I would have been more loyal to her. Same with like you, like had you voted with us that round at the swap, I probably would have been like,
Okay, maybe I'll throw him a bone.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of many regrets. So we talked a lot about idols. We talked about your Survivor early experience really kind of shaped your like, I want to ensure I play around these properly. And you get got by an idol.
Right.
You have to kind of feel frustrated about that because you saw it coming too. This wasn't a surprise like last time.
Yeah, no, it was really frustrating because I felt like I was in a good position. I also like, I feel like I did everything I could. Like, I don't know what else I could have done that round aside from flip and then take a chance that they do vote with me. Yeah, I've talked to like Lindsay since, and she said that if she sat next to me at Tribal and it wasn't Kristen, she would have voted Keegan. So that's interesting too. Just like where you sit at Tribal can make a difference.
Because I noticed like all the bats were in the front row, all the Ulu were in the back row, but you were kind of on the edge. So like maybe there's merit to not sitting on the edge, sitting in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's something to where you sit at Tribal, Steven.
Well, at least that's why on US Survivor, it's been nice seeing they put like guys and tall people in the front row now versus like if I played it, like maybe I'm just so tall they always just relegate me to the back row and I profit. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you don't know. Like it could have changed the game, but we can't say for sure.
So hypothetically, Rachel goes home. Who would have been your best? Did you want to take the final two? You can settle the final three. Like, what was your final three? Like, who did you want to be with?
Yeah, final three for me, and nothing against Stacy because I love her and she was part of my alliance, but I'll break it down for you. Lindsay and Kristen would have been my final three because I felt like had I gone to the final three with Lindsay and Stacy, they might choose each other. So that was no. And then had I gone to the final three with Stacy and Kristen, I am not sure, but I think maybe Stacy takes Kristen. So I think in a final three with Lindsay and Kristen, I'm in a really good spot.
Okay. So more hypothetical scenarios. Given how the merge played out for you, are there moments or things you could have done differently that kind of changed the ebb and flow of the game to the point where you maybe survived that final 7 vote?
Sure, we could have. I mean, let's see. What could I have done differently? I could have flipped. I could have like totally gone to the other side. I could have, stayed true to my word with Rachel, like when I won that first challenge, and maybe that would have changed things. But I don't know, Steven. I feel like it was. It's hard to say
because something that's about your game is that your alliance was not very flexible with you.
Right.
As in, you did not get your way with them. A lot of times you're like, they want to lean, so Lima's going home. Like they want this one, and you can't break that stalemate because like the three of them seem very tight from our discussion about them.
Yeah, it was almost like being in a relationship and the person's like, I want to break up with you. And I'm like, no, don't break up with me. I want to stay in it. And then they're like, okay, fine. And then like they do it again and again. And so it kind of felt like that after a while. But no, I just really wanted to work with them. I like had a lot of trust with them, even though we weren't voting together sometimes. I felt like I did feel like they had my back, and I felt like, they were loyal to me. I mean, it sounds kind of weird.
I mean, they were loyal to you, but they weren't. It sounds like you weren't able to sway them to do what you wanted just because that maybe there's 3 versus 1, or just because of how the relationships played out. They felt they could push more to take out Tony instead. They could push more to take out Rachel instead. They were much more connected with Keegan and Taylor.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and then like that final 7 immunity, right? You win that, everything changes.
Yeah,
or maybe like like we said, like if you had known in the final 8 that really what was going on is Batman was collapsing, you could have saved the extra vote.
Yeah, that would have been great if we saved that extra vote. And I hope that like Stacy would have used it for Keegan at that point.
David, is your game a live by the advantage, die by the advantage?
Maybe.
Because advantages were a very two-edged sword for your game, right? They opened up doors, but man, they also slammed shut doors in the most painful way for you.
What advantages, Steven?
Pure skill right here, woo! Just because like it was such a clutch moment in reading the game to take that advantage early game and like that, because that like allowed you to kind of sculpt the merge, but then like unfortunately just things fell into the hands of the minority from there on out.
Yeah, it was hard. Like I feel like I thought we had like a really strong alliance, and it looking back, it wasn't as strong since we didn't vote together like a couple of times post merge. So yeah, I don't know, Steven, what would you have done in my position at Final 7?
I don't know, because it feels like just talking about your game, like your decisions are surprising. It feels just more limited than I expected, right? And I think like maybe it is like when we were talking about pairing off, you paired off with Tony. Maybe it was like pushing more on that Rachel relationship to really have her trust you and be more open to you. So when you get to this point in the game, she's like, yeah, they voted for me. I'm out with them. I'm in with you. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Voting out Keegan, keeping me. Woo! No.
What would you have done, Steven?
I would like to think that I would have capitulated to the Ula majority at the beginning of merge and been flexible from there on out.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, that is kind of what Keegan tried to do.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm not like who knows what will, who knows, right? So I can't comment on what I would have done, but it's just interesting kind of seeing the breakdown of how it happened. I mean, Kristen was there, and I would have been like you said, like I had a really close relationship with Kristen in the last game we played before she voted me out on accident, sort of purpose. I don't know. She told me she's voting me out, but I didn't play an idol. I went home and I was like, I deserve this.
Oh, come on, Steven. What's wrong?
It was a stupid moment. It was a very, very stupid thing for me to have done.
Yeah, especially coming from Kristen. I feel like she's telling you that you're going home and you don't play your idol.
No one ever said I was a smart man.
You're very smart, Steven.
Well, I can do it. I can do taxes. It's great. Watching back these episodes, what have you learned or seen in other people's games that wasn't apparent to you or has been novel to you?
Yeah, that I guess Stacy is one surprise for me because I felt like she played the middle ground a lot more than I realized. Like even at the merge, she was like gunning for Lexi, and I felt like she was just very, very much in the middle for a couple of votes. And good for her. She did say to me like a lot out there, like, hey, you're really paranoid. And like after the game, I thought about it for a while, and I was like, was I really paranoid? Like, but watching the episodes, I'm like, that's why I was paranoid, because you were playing the middle. So,
and like, because in the little discussions I have with Stacy in our group chat, I thought it was fascinating that one of her biggest regrets at the merge isn't voting with minority, right? Playing that middle even harder.
Yeah, like I was actually shocked by that too. I was most shocked, I think, watching her game of all of them, because I kind of knew. Trying to think if there's anybody else that I was surprised by. What about you? Is there anybody that you're pretty surprised by?
Considering I only saw the merge from the tribal councils and the challenges, like how the final 8 went down is shocking, just because I had this picture in my mind of it's just Rachel and Taylor, or Rachel and Keegan kind of turning on each other, and Ula just having to pick the litter. But that's not how it went down at all. It was more of like they just collapsed without even talking to each other, and Ula was like, what is happening?
Yeah, basically. So it was more like that round you were shocked by. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that like surprised me. Um, I guess like Tony too. Like I think he was underestimated out there,
Mm-hmm.
and he did have like very tight connections with that group. Like, I feel like in the beginning, you guys kind of pushed him aside.
I don't think it was.
Or did he do that?
I mean, when you have sleeping arrangements, right? All of you slept in the tarp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tony did not sleep in the tarp. Tony slept
Okay.
like a couple feet away. And I just remember like, huh, strange. And I
Yeah.
was just like, well, maybe like I just felt like he was kind of moving into that more outcast role, but then things just flipped the next day. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's true. He did kind of
Mm-hmm.
isolate himself, but
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I feel like he was probably a lot of their number twos though. Like I don't know for sure, but
Yeah.
like, and we'll see. Like, but I wonder like of that group of Batohan, like
Mm-hmm.
who is taking Tony to the final two?
Mm-hmm. Um, you looking back on these two different Survivor games,
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, how to say this? How would you characterize your experience in Survivor BC in relation to your previous experience?
Mm. Yeah, I think like my Survivor BC experience is kind of opposite of my LA experience because I felt like I was constantly fighting from the bottom in
Mm-hmm.
my LA experience. And in BC, I felt like I had a lot of momentum and
Mm-hmm.
was at the top quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they were just really, really different games.
Mm-hmm.
And I got idled out in both.
Consistency, yay.
Yes.
Um, what did you learn or take away from yourself as a result, like either about yourself personally or yourself as a Survivor player? Like, did you have takeaways from your experience in BC?
Yeah, I guess like I've said before, like I'm just like I think I'm loyal to a fault. Like I was like, you guys, we're gonna do this, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sticking with you. And um, those people that I started with, I stayed with, and I did whatever I could to protect not only me but them. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one takeaway. Another takeaway is that it is hard to play with very emotional players.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think when there's that much emotion, it can kind of cause your gameplay to crumble.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that was rough,
Mm-hmm.
and a realization.
Um, Now that, as a jury member, what were the things that you were valuing
Mm-hmm.
in a winner? Or like, what were you looking for in the remaining players? And did you have a like person you'd like to see win at that point too?
Yeah, I think at that point when I got voted out, the person I thought was playing the best game was Keegan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like I can't say for sure like who I would have voted for or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. You can't really say that because you need
Yeah.
to hear speeches and all. But like at that point in the game, had Keegan got to the end, I think he would have been the person that I voted for.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of what I said at Tribal. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know they laughed at it, but the truth is like Keegan was on the bottom and he
Yeah.
survived that swap and he just kept like fighting from the bottom. And to me,
Mm-hmm.
that's like a really good story.
Mm-hmm.
And he built these relationships with Stacy and Lindsay at the swap that carried him, to the final 7-6. And I think at that point, I saw his game as really great. And I saw Rachel as like the other person,
Mm-hmm.
or one of the other high contenders there because she was winning challenges. She had advantages. I saw her as a little less strategic than Keegan, but she was also playing hard. She was
Mm-hmm.
lying. She wasn't
Mm-hmm.
that loyal. So,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I respect all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
And that's one thing, what you said earlier. That's one thing I really enjoyed seeing is Rachel's strategy and how she's playing. That's been very
yeah,
fun to watch.
for sure. And then I would say Lindsay. Like I love that Lindsay didn't play a game prior to this,
Mm-hmm.
and she was coming in, and her social game was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Like she won over everybody. Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody loved Lindsay. She had like this almost like this Shawnee way about her where like
Yeah.
people just wanted to be around Lindsay.
Yeah.
And
I mean, all I was doing on our swap tribe before my vote out was working Lindsay just to show like how much I wanted to work with her.
yeah, she's like a great social player. And so I also, she was winning challenges, and I was a big part of like her alliance, and we strategized together. So I saw her as like a top contender. I would have had to hear like more of Stacy's game,
Mm-hmm.
like from watching the episodes and seeing her play the middle more. Like I respect that, and like I would have had to hear that. And then Kristen's another that like social player. Like people love Kristen,
Mm-hmm.
so um, they all have their pros.
Yeah.
And I would say though at that point Keegan would have been my first choice.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Well, is there anything else about your game or the episode you want to highlight or bring out right now?
No, I mean, I don't. Is there anything else that you?
Well, I have a series of kind of like quick questions to ask you. This is one of the
Okay.
things I like to do with toggle players, just kind of like just answer the first thing that comes to your mind. So
Mhm.
for you, what was your lowest moment at Survivor BC?
I mean, my vote out for sure. Just like being at that tribal council, um, feeling a bit attacked,
Mhm.
and just like not really having a. I just felt like I couldn't move, so like that was definitely my low point.
Uh, I, I think from your game you had a lot of highs. What was the highest moment for you? What was the best moment?
Um, you know, I think it was probably the Lori vote. Like, I think
Mhm.
that was
More than the
just,
Tony vote.
yeah, I think the Lori vote it was, yeah, it was at the swap. So, like, if
Hmm.
we lost that, it was either, me or Stacy next, probably.
Hmm.
So, I thought that was more crucial than the Tony vote.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Um, what's a player that you wish you had worked with but didn't?
Lori,
Hmm.
like, I really wanted to work with her. I built like a really strong connection with her at the swap, and I just felt like her and I could have been a really good duo. She seems like super loyal and trustworthy, and
Hmm.
I think we're just so different, and that
Hmm.
sometimes works.
Who surprised you the most out there?
Um, who surprised me the most? Probably Lindsay.
Hmm.
Like I said, I was just really proud of her game, just not having any prior experience and
Hmm.
turning on that social game and
Hmm.
being able to woo everybody and also win those challenges. I think, yeah, she was a force to be reckoned with for sure.
What was one of your favorite camp life moments, or something that maybe wasn't on camera?
Um, I think the first night we all just like sat around and talked, and
Hmm.
um, I think yeah, Kristen's like super into astrology, and I think a couple of other people are too. I find it fascinating. I think all the men on our tribe were the same sign, which was kind of interesting. Um, And so I remember us just talking about astrology for a while. And I think Lindsay even wore a Gemini shirt out there, didn't she?
I
Um,
don't recall. Maybe.
I think she did. But yeah, I remember us just really getting to know each other. And it was kind of cool our season because like everybody was from somewhere else and we all had such different backgrounds.
Hmm.
Especially our tribe, nobody knew each other. So it
Hmm.
was literally 8 strangers just getting to know each other.
Hmm. What was your favorite challenge?
Um, are are Steal the Bacon super fun.
Fair. I was just like, by the third time, like, Steven, go against Steven again. I'm like, I can't beat him. It's like Kevin.
It's funny though, because you guys are like so much taller than me and like bigger. You guys are what? How tall are you?
Almost 6'5".
Yeah, and I'm like 5'11" maybe. And so I
I
was
think
like,
you
there's
work
no.
out though.
Have you been working out since, Steven?
I have a obstacle course race this Saturday, and I'm gonna get wrecked in it. It'll be great.
Oh, that's good. Obstacle course race. That's challenging.
I did an archery class last semester, so I can shoot
There
with a
you
bow and arrow
go.
for a future archery challenge. But no, I've not been working out like I should be.
Okay. Yeah, that was probably my favorite challenge. I also the merge challenge was obviously really fun, and I really liked the candle challenge. If it wasn't for the wind and the the candle quality,
Mm-hmm.
like if that was like a well-designed challenge, I would have loved it.
Mm-hmm. What is your favorite thing about Canada now?
Yeah, afterwards I got to explore a bit, and we went to Joffrey Lake. Have you been
Mm-hmm.
there? Oh, it was incredible. You have to go if you're ever there again. But just like the nature um, and getting to explore, yeah, BC, and then of course the game.
We talked about this a lot earlier, but you are called in to help design the next RBC game, and they're asked like, what should we do with returning players, right? Like, have you would you want them to all disclose it immediately, disclose it in depth, or keep it hidden? Like, what would your advice be
Like if
for returning players?
production.
Like, should it be disclosed what games they played, and if so,
Oh, I
how?
see what you're saying. Yeah, I think like I would prefer to know what everybody has played and their relationships,
Mm-hmm.
just because of this game and how it affected my game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm going to play game, I want to play it fairly, and I
Mm-hmm.
want everybody to have an equal shot. And
Mm-hmm.
when people have that advantage going in, it's really it's a crutch. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it can really help your game, or it could really hurt your game.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it's best to air it out, and then let bygones be bygones.
Mm-hmm. Would you play another LRG?
I don't know. I had a really great experience, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
haven't played any since, and I don't know. I'm old, Steven.
You're not that old.
That old.
Let me help encourage you.
Thank you. Would you?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I have been looking to see what other games are out there that I would like to play. I look back at my RBC experience, and I am disappointed with how I played, just because I was like, man, I just had a slew of unforced errors that I feel like I could correct and not do again. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think I just enjoy the traveling aspect, the meeting new people aspect, the challenges. I'm from Los Angeles as well. Like, I never camp or go outside, so just it's like
Right.
so out of my comfort zone. It's just like all engrossing for me.
Yeah. No, it was really out of my comfort zone too. So I totally feel you. Do you feel like you would have done better on the Ula Ula tribe? Say like you swap Chris to your tribe, let's just say. Do you think you do better with us?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, generally with how the track of the season goes, I mean, like, does this mean I'm going to be the third person voted out instead of the sixth?
Right, right, right.
I have absolutely no idea if I would have done better on the Ulu tribe.
Uh-huh.
It's really hard to say. Like, maybe I used Kristen as a crutch early on, but then there's the issue with Stacy, and me knowing that Stacy's not big on working returning players. Does that mean
Right.
I feel like I need to target her because I feel like this is a no-go for us? But then Noah happens.
Yeah, yeah.
And he comes to me and says, "You're the second person I want to vote out." I'm like, "Come on, dude."
Right, right.
But then there's also Lindsay, who I really got on that. It's hard to know. Like, what if we changed places? And you were on the original battle, and you, Rachel, and Lori all gelled with each other?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say,
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about that. I'm like, where would I fit in on the Batohan tribe? You
Mm-hmm.
know. And then
Well,
there's Kevin too. Like we played
mm-hmm.
I didn't really know Kevin though. Like
Yeah,
we played a round I think together, and he he got screwed by a
exile and
twist.
twist.
Yeah, and like ended up on my tribe, and we voted him out. But I really didn't get to know him.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I knew he was playing, like because he said something in like a chat online, and I told Jaira, I said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I know Kevin like from a game. I don't know him that well, but I just want to be fair and say like
Mm-hmm.
this person I know, you know."
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, I prefer that everybody like airs everything at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, and then we just move on, you
Yeah.
know.
And maybe that's something that LRGs just need to be better about in the future. I mean, I've thought a lot about like the how do you deal with pre-existing connections and like and what games should do. And I think, yeah, I know
Yeah,
like for instance, the survival challenge tries so hard to make sure none of them happen, but like in the recent seasons, you've seen like one or two happen. It's always been very interesting to see how the fallout of how those shape the season.
right, right. Um, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm excited to watch season 9. Well, like see what happens.
Yeah, well, I'm excited a lot of things. You know, I'm excited to see how the see evidence of how the rest of our season plays out. I'm excited for the Survivor BC seasons that are coming this summer with new players, and I'm just really grateful I was able to steal you for an hour and a half of your time tonight to talk.
Yeah, it was great chatting with you, Steven. Thanks for
Mm-hmm.
having me.
Yeah. Do you have social media that you want people to follow or anything like that, or you're up to anything you want people to know about?
Um, I have social media, um, but I feel like, yeah, I'm not a big social media person,
Mm-hmm.
but I can leave my link or something in the
comment
chat.
if you want to find out more about David.
Yeah, you can.
um, Well, again, David, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in tonight for the episode recap and kind of a real deep dive into David's game. I hope you're excited for future Survivor BC content. The next episodes will be a lot of fun as well, I promise. Though I still feel that final 8 is the linchpin of the season, and so David, thank you for making that happen.
Sure, Steven.
And so, yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and talk to you all later.
Thanks, Steven. See you.